folks. Welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Wednesday, May the 29th, 2019. And I have the very distinct honor and great pleasure of welcoming back to the Daily Coin and the Gadfly. Appreciate all the Gadfly subscribers. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider taking advantage of our 1 week free trial. And I'm speaking of someone who has had the finger on the pulse of what's been happening all across Europe. He's been focused very heavily on Brexit, and you can't look at Brexit without all of the other nation states within Europe. So he has a very good insight as to what's happening, and I'm very excited to welcome back Mr. Tom Luongo of Gold, Goats, and Guns. Tom, welcome back.
Good morning, Rory. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope you are.
Come see, come saw. I take it every day as they come. Another day above the roses.
There you go. Looking down at the grass instead of up at the roots.
Exactly.
That's
at my age, you have to. At my age, every day is a gift, I guess. Right? It's just the way you have to look at it.
Yes. And you write for Strategic Culture, which is one of my favorite geopolitical websites. Mm-hmm. And you write for Market Watch as well?
No, I write for moneyandmarkets.com.
Money and Markets,
okay. Yeah, over on for Banyan Hill, my former publisher over at Newsmax. Hit me up for a once a week article, usually on Fridays or Saturdays. So that article gets written on Thursday and then usually to go out for Friday. So you can look for me there.
Well, you are very busy, and I certainly appreciate you taking time out to speak with us today.
I'm happy.
Want to just jump in. I mean, Nigel Farage has been really the face of Brexit. He engineered or helped engineer the whole thing to begin with. He was on Tucker Carlson last night. I have a huge respect for Nigel Farage and everything that he's done. How important, or do you see him being the next prime minister of the UK, or are the globalists, the satanic globalists, are they going to let everything go come Halloween?
I do believe that he's going to wind up being prime minister. I'm just not sure he's going to be prime minister of the UK.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that I really do believe at a certain level that Brexit is going to force a real capitulation, a real fundamental break. It has been incredibly divisive. And so for that reason, it's pretty obvious from the strong turnout for the Scottish nationalists up in Scotland and the fact that any kind of hard Brexit is going to negatively impact Northern Ireland. And we've seen the polling coming out of Northern Ireland now saying that they want to join the Republic of Ireland. Not necessarily because they want to be in the EU, but because they do not absolutely, under any circumstances, want a hard border with Ireland. And so Nigel Farage could easily be the Prime Minister of England, but not the United Kingdom.
Gotcha.
Okay. And I wrote an article stating that to that effect about a month ago, actually, saying it was pretty obvious once the polling started for Brexit that he was above 20%. And then it can just continue to rise and rise and rise as the closer we got to the election. That it was pretty obvious that he was going to win that election, and that he's also talking. I don't know if you've watched any of the stump speeches or really watched him talk recently, but he's absolutely focused on Brexit Party itself, changing the face of British politics from the ground up. He's talking about revising the House of Lords. He's talking about proportional representation. I think he's talking about proportional representation for the voting system. He's talking about a great, huge upheaval of the way politics is done in Britain. He's not just let's get Brexit across the line. Now, whether or not he's going to be allowed to do all that is a different story. But the vote on this weekend or on Thursday that we saw the results of on Sunday tells me when you break the vote totals down, he won out of 372 local authorities. They didn't use the same polling system that they used for the general election with the 650 MPs, right? They didn't use those districts. They used different, larger districts, 372 of them. The Brexit Party won convincingly 258 of them.
Yes, which is
so
huge.
Now, Right. So now you translate even 80% of that victory. Take, slough 20% off the top for being too close to call because they were three-way splits or whatever. He might have won. And I discounted, by the way, in that count, I discounted seats that local authorities he won in a three-way race by a point or two, right? Where,
Yeah.
he got 27, the Labor got 26, and the Lib Dems got 24. I just discounted it. That's a loss. He's not going to win that, because that vote in a first past the post system will coalesce around somebody else. But in this, even then, take 80% off the top. That's still more than enough for him to walk in with a full majority, a real majority in any general election. And the proof of that analysis will be whether or not Jeremy Corbyn calls for a general election, calls for a vote of no confidence against the Tory government when Parliament goes back into session, which I think was just on June 4th. So,
do you see that happening? And based
no,
on
I don't.
the analysis,
I don't.
okay,
I think what's going to happen is I think everybody is settled in now for a 2-month Tory leadership fight, which is ridiculous, given the fact that in Greece, Alexis Tsipras saw the results, lost by 10 points to New Democracy, the center-right New Democracy Party, and he abdicated immediately, called for snap
yes,
elections that night.
yes,
And in Britain, of course, it's different. Britain is strategically far more important. Yada yada yada. I mean, the major parties have lost European elections before, right? Nigel Farage won with UKIP back in 2014, forcing David Cameron to adopt the Brexit referendum, and then we get the referendum, and history stems from the last European elections, right? So I'm not saying that Corbyn should do that, he should do it, but I'm not saying that it's going to happen. And it's not going to happen, but it's not going to happen for a number of reasons, or at least unless they both fully believe this is Labour and the Lib Dems' best chance to put together a Brexit, a pro-Remain Parliament before the 31st of October, and basically poison pill everything, get some kind of ugly withdrawal agreement across the line, or scuttle Brexit completely, and then the government collapses. And then there's a general election after that, which sweeps Farage into power, but now Brexit is off the table. Do you see what I'm saying?
yes,
You see how that could work out? That's about the only order of operations I can see. Most likely what they're going to do is the Tories are going to go through their leadership fight. There's going to be a move to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn as leader of Labour, because they desperately don't want him in charge. The political elite in Britain desperately don't want Corbyn in charge. They want someone they can control. They want an Yvette Cooper or a Tom Watson or whatever. That's who they want, right? They want a Blairite in charge. They want a disciple of Tony in charge. And I'm fully convinced that Theresa May ran an appallingly bad campaign in 2017 in the general election in order to allow Corbyn to win, in order to allow Labour to win, and then there be a fight to remove Corbyn from power. A Blairite takes over and Brexit gets scuttled then. And she was able to cobble together a majority. It was either that or she gets the full majority and then pushes through Merkel's withdrawal treaty with a full majority of Remainers in her party, and she didn't have it. And that's why we are where we are today.
I want to jump in here real quick because I don't want to get too far.
Yeah, I could be here. I could do this for the entire 30 minutes. So yeah, so quite all right.
Greece. I want to because Tsipras, the Syriza party, when they came into power, they were elected to say, because Tsipras said, we're going to leave the EU, we're going to go back to the drachma. Mm-hmm. We're done. And then he had that closed door meeting with Victoria F. the EU Newland. And the next thing you know, well, not only we're not going to do any of that, but we're going to actually take on more debt from the Troika. Now, and the reason I bring that up is because of the way that he just immediately folded. Do you think that he was looking for a way out because of what Yanis Varoufakis, after that meeting happened with Victoria Nuland, Yanis Varoufakis said, I am not having anything to do with this. No. See you later. And everything is kind of gotten quiet because they've gotten back on the plantation of the
Right.
Troika. Now, is this his way of getting out?
Oh yeah, I mean he knows that he's deeply unpopular. And the other thing is to remember that there's also the name recognition of Macedonia, of North Macedonia. That also had him in serious trouble as well. And I think that had more to do with that than it does going all the way back to the euro crisis, the sovereign debt crisis of 2015, because in negotiations with Germany just held their water the same way they always do. I'm sure the Americans shook him down and says, "You're not leaving the EU, you're not leaving NATO, yada yada yada. You're too
Right.
far. You're far too strategically important. Don't get uppity. You're a colony. Get over it." That's that. That's all true, right? Um, and in 2015, remember that Merkel wasn't, and there was no air between Merkel and the United States at that point. Trump hadn't come to power yet, so it was all a push at that point
Right.
to isolate Russia, to get control of Ukraine, get control of the gas transit, shake the Russians down, and force them into a long-term gas delivery contract for Europe through Ukraine that was going to be on EU's pricing terms, meaning there was going to be no profit in it for Gazprom. Okay, that was the goal. That was Europe's gib in the fomenting the Ukrainian civil war.
Right.
Then NATO gets to put missiles on the Russian border.
Exactly.
Okay, that's their gib. So that was the quid pro quo there. And then also get Sevastopol and bottle the Russians up, take over the Black Sea, and be done with it, and win the war without firing a shot. That was the goal. Well, they fired some shots. The snipers fired a lot of shots into and killed the crowd and killed people in the crowd on both sides of the aisle. And there were absolutely, those guys were not agents of Yanukovych. And we can go into, I don't want to go into that. It's like rehashing old history, but it's obvious that that whole thing was designed from the ground up to do exactly what it was attempted to do. And Putin put the kibosh on it, got Yanukovych out, defended Crimea, and then defended the Donbass when they broke away. And now we're here 5 years later. And there's a huge gap between what the Russians want, what the Germans want, and what the Americans want.
Huge divide.
Huge divide. Greece is still important, right? Especially with Turkey, and Erdogan now becoming free actors. I think Tsipras looks at this and goes, "Yeah, maybe this is his way." I was like, "I don't want to lead this anymore, and I'm deeply unpopular, and it's time to move on." And that's that. And he caved completely, but he never had the mandate of the people to take them out of the euro.
He never held up his part of that whole deal.
But he never really had the mandate for it. 70% of the people in Greece at the time he was negotiating with Germany wanted to stay in the euro. They just wanted debt restructuring. They wanted their cake to eat it too. They weren't willing to do. They were trying to negotiate the same way Theresa May was trying to negotiate with the EU over Brexit. Well, I don't want to. I want to have a nice close relationship, but I want a deal. I want a deal, and I won't leave without a deal. Well, okay. Well, here's this crappy deal, but I want a deal. Well, that deal's not acceptable. Give me a better deal. No, take no deal off the table. And then she takes no deal off she allows Parliament to take no deal off the table, undercutting all of her negotiating leverage. The only thing you can't negotiate with the EU at all. You have to hit them. You have to use the standard kind of tactic. You have to hit them across the eyeballs with a stick and say, "We're leaving."
Right. Well, that's how you deal with criminals.
That's the only way they understand.
Right.
It's the only thing they understand. Because otherwise, they have the media in their back pocket. They have the oligarchs in their back pocket. They have everything in their back pocket. They don't negotiate from a level playing field.
Okay? Well, why should they?
No, of course not. They have everything. I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't. They don't. It's just the observation.
Exactly.
They have all of this leverage, and the only leverage you have is, it's law. We're leaving.
Right. See you later.
And that's it. It's the same. Salvini is going to run into the same problem in Italy.
Right. And I wanted to ask you about Salvini because of what's happening, what he's doing, and he's brought two issues to the table that you're not supposed to bring to the table. One is gold. The other one is their closed border. So he's brought both of those to the table, and he told the ECB and Bank of England, it's not your gold, it's our gold. And they said, well, not so fast. And he said, well, we're going to close our border. And once again, from Brussels, they said, well, not so fast. That's not how it works. You don't understand. And he's like, yeah, I do understand. And this is what we're going to do. Now, he's doing that. You got Orban over in Hungary, who has, in fact, closed their border. He's done that. He's already closed their border. You have Le Pen, who's won in France. You have Nigel Farage, who's won the Brexit Party. Now, and there's already talk, and I'm sure it was happening before the count was finalized on Sunday, but you have this talk of a coalition, not necessarily including Orban in Hungary, but I'm sure that it will. But between Salvini, Le Pen, and Farage, do you see that materializing?
It's possible.
And how
Salvini and Le Pen already are in an alliance. Now the question is what Farage is going to do. Farage doesn't want to be there. He will use whatever he has to his advantage, but he doesn't want to be there. Orban does not want to leave the European People's Party for a variety of reasons. They try kicking him out. They haven't done. From what I understand, they haven't actually done it. They've recommended it, but they haven't actually done it yet. But we'll see. That it won't really matter. The biggest issue there, and I want to go back to Salvini and gold and all that in a minute, because that's really more important. But let's just drill in one. The big takeaway for the European Parliament makeup is that the Social Democrats and the EPP, the European People's Party, cannot rule with an absolute majority anymore. Therefore, their handpicked successor to Juncker is not a guarantee. Now, either the Greens or ALDE have to become part of the coalition to do that. But there's going to be a big enough coalition now. I'm not sure how the rules work for appointments to ministerial positions and whatnot, and members of the commission. Okay, I don't understand those rules, and God forbid, I don't ever want to know those rules. But I do know that I think there's some leverage that they will have. Le Pen, Farage, Salvini, etc., the Eurosceptics, taken broadly, will have some leverage in order to get some specific ministerial positions to their, given to them in the next government. I think I may be wrong about that. Okay. But they may be able to get something, get some concession there. I don't know. But you can understand that the Euro integrationists are going to batten down the hatches, and they're going to and they're going to harden. Both sides are going to harden. The Eurosceptics are going to harden. The Eurosceptics that are in the European Parliament now are much harder people, much harder Eurosceptics than the ones that left. Okay, the ones that were there before, and they're a larger percentage. Similarly, the Euro integrationists are much harder Euro integrationists than they were before. Okay. Overtly hard, not meaning the Guy Verhofstadt's ALDE, Alliance of Liberals and Democrats of Europe, now has something like 104, 105 seats. Why? Because the Liberal Democrats are aligned with them, and Labour lost their votes to the Liberal Democrats. And so the Labour has always been with the Social Democrats, and effectively that took away the majority of the EPP and the Social Democrats. So that switch in and of itself is important, and Macron throwing in with ALDE as well, right? So that means now that there's now this. They're all going to be fighting amongst themselves. All the worst people in the European Union are all going to now be fighting for control of the European Union. That in and of itself, and they all have very different views on how to deal with Italy. So now let's go back to Italy and Italy's fiscal problems. Salvini, I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know, how much your listeners understand this. Italy's sovereign gold is owned by the central bank. The central bank is owned by all the major commercial banks in Italy. It's very similar to our setup, right?
Yes.
Where the shareholders in the Federal Reserve are all J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and all the rest of them. Now, Bank of New York Mellon and the rest of it. Now, what Salvini is attempting to do is to repatriate the ownership of the sovereign gold of Italy and take it away from the Bank of Italy. The ECB is crying, screaming bloody murder over this because here's the gig. The ECB has bail-in powers. They can take over a bank for any freaking reason they want. Overnight, on a Sunday night, they declare the bank insolvent. By Monday morning, it's been sold to $1 for $1 to somebody else and all of its assets. So, for example, Monte dei Paschi or Unicredit could easily wind up as being owned by Deutsche Bank, including their share of Italy's sovereign gold. This is what Salvini is scared to death of. And that's what the ECB is really upset about the minute that hit the table. So he's got to get that through. And he may call for a snap election to get this done. With a 34% majority now, with him and Forza Italia, he's at 43%. Add in the Brothers of Italy, and now you're at 48%. Doesn't even need 5-star anymore. Okay? He's very close to not even needing 5-star anymore. And their support's collapsing daily. They've gone from 28% at the beginning of the year to 17%. They'll be at 12% by the end of the year. If they drop below 16%, they drop below the chasm, they'll be done. 5-star movement won't exist. It'll exist as a Southern European party. But Salvini will have taken all of their issues. And he's still on board as to being willing to do some of their program, universal basic income and stuff like that. That really doesn't, at the end of the day, the numbers that we're talking about here for that, I mean, they're stupid. I don't agree with it philosophically, but the numbers are just, it's effectively couch money at this point. The kind of money that they're talking about giving out for universal basic income, it's so minuscule. Pay it off. Use it to get, if I were Salvini and I was in his position, I would use it as a way to shore up the Southern Europe vote. And get 5-star out of his coalition, get control of the government, and repatriate. Because his plan is, and it's I saw this coming. I laid this out for him in a blog post after blog post in 2017, and I said what Matteo Salvini needs to do. And I hate this. I hate to bust my hand, pat myself on the back, but I said exactly this is what he needs to do, or this is what his strategy is going to be if he's the guy I think he is, which is his goal is to convince. Unlike Tsipras, who came into power with no mandate to leave the euro, but to get some kind of debt forgiveness or some kind of new structure to the debt to allow Greece to survive, he didn't have a democratic mandate to take him out of the euro. So therefore, the Germans played hardball and just said, "Tough, we're taking all your assets," and eventually he caved. Salvini has to get the democratic mandate, and he's not quite there yet. The Italian people aren't ready to leave the euro, but he keeps making the case for it by politically putting Europe on the wrong side of every issue.
Because they are.
He is. They are wrong. It's not hard for him to do this, but he's skillfully maneuvering Brussels into doing exactly what Brussels shouldn't be doing. Case in point, latest thing on Zero Hedge this morning, EU confirms that, they're considering fining Italy 3.5 billion euros for violating budget rules. This is insane. They don't have the money in the first place. All they're going to do is print it, hand it to a friggin', the bank's going to buy it, and then, Unicredit is going to buy it, and then the ECB is going to slough it off to some Dutch bank through the Target 2 program. I mean, it's all you're doing is fining yourself with your own money. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And all it's doing is it gives Salvini that much more ammunition to go back to the people and say Brussels needs to be reformed. And he's doing it very smart. He's not coming in fire and thunder and trying. He's saying, I'm willing to try and reform it from within. We need new rules. We need new this. We need new that. And the EU is going to say no, 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 no. And eventually he's going to say, I don't have any other options. They're trying to steal our gold. They're trying to kill our banks. They're trying to kill our country. I have defended your borders. I have been a good steward. I'm making deals with Donald Trump. I'm making deals with this guy. I'm making deals with China. All of this stuff.
Yeah, we hadn't even touched on Italy and China and that marriage that's coming down the aisle as we speak.
Right.
It's I like what he's doing a lot. I think that he's making a lot of noise, and he's making a lot of the right type of noise, just like what you just described. And I think that that's going to get the attention of the people of Italy because they have been lulled into to asleep, just like here in the United States. But I think that the noise that he's making is appropriate to waking them up and to get them on his side. And I think that I agree wholeheartedly that with your analysis, Tom, that that's what he's doing and that's what he's going to do.
Right.
I think
Whether
that
he's going to be able,
that's going to
whether he's
happen.
going to be able to pull it off, Rory, is a good question. But that's the plan,
Yeah,
right?
I think he will. I think he has.
I
I
I hope. I
I
don't.
really do. I hope so too, because
Yeah.
it's just the whole thing. I think that what's happening with the sovereigns, and I include the United States in that as well. I mean, we're trying, you and I and all the people that are listening. That's all that we just want our country back.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
we're not
it's
getting. Well, here in the United States, we ain't getting it back. It ain't coming
right.
back.
Well,
I hate to tell you this, but I just did a 2 hour live stream with my friend Halsey English last night, and he just read me the riot act. Said, dude, it's done. We've lost. Now it's a matter of, it's a matter of how is this thing going to break up before, and where are the pockets of sovereignty going to last? Are they going to survive? Because the political system here in the United States does not allow for the kind of rampant change that we're seeing in England. The ballot access laws preclude any kind of change. The United States is too big to govern. It's too big to run political campaigns on. It's too big. I mean, just physically too big. We need 3 times the number of people in the House of Representatives than we currently have.
535 people running 320, 340, 350
Think of
million
it this way.
people is
Think of it this
ridiculous.
way. The representatives represent over 700,000 people. How are they supposed to canvass those people directly?
Can't.
How are we supposed to be able to? Right. The House of Representatives should be 1,200 people at this point. I mean, 1,500 people. And again, I'm not saying it would be better or more functional. It would just be better representation of what's going on. But again, with a first past the post system, you also have incredibly tactical voting, which is so we got onerous ballot access laws, ridiculous geography, and the sheer amount of money necessary, and a first past the post voting system that's designed from the ground up to ensure that there's only 2 parties. I mean, it's just math at this point. The system is mathematically designed to not fail for the people who run it. From a math perspective, it's over. Take off all the rose-colored glasses. I came to this conclusion in 2003. It's why I stopped being a member of the Libertarian Party. It's why I stopped doing electoral politics. I'm like, the math is dumb. I have a better chance in my life of making a difference by writing articles and giving my money to the Mises Institute and going to work every day, which is
Right.
exactly what I did. And I was right to have done so because that money then turned into the Ron Paul campaign. I mean, it was just, this is where we are. And I hate to say this, and I don't, but I've always come to the conclusion that the United States is, 1, too big to govern, and 2, if it's something is too big to govern, and the demographic shifts from generation to generation. Once the baby boomers are out of power, the whole idea of holding on to all 50 states as one union is insane. The millennials aren't going to go for this stuff, and Gen X isn't going to pay for it. I mean, let's just get down to brass tacks here, right?
Yeah.
Like, the millennials are too non-confrontational to play this game. They're just going to say, okay, you want to leave, go leave. You should just be a different country now. They don't have that same image of America in their heads that Donald Trump built MAGA, his MAGA cult of personality around. That's a very baby boomer, early Gen X idea. It doesn't really exist, in anybody post Star Wars, who was born post Star Wars. That doesn't really exist. It's just not there. And we have to come to terms, and we, as the older generation, and we are in the older half of that generation, really have to come to grips with that. And we're the ones struggling with this from an existential point of view. And realize that it's not about the country per se. It's about our culture first, and borders second. Our culture is what's under attack. These people having this kind of power are able to affect and destroy our culture and our communities, through cynical redistricting and zip code targeting of immigrants, of and that kind of thing is vile.
Yes.
And that's what we're all reacting to. And we put that into the context of, well, save America. No. Save your culture. Because none of us are going to pick up rifles and storm the Bastille. That ain't happening. Right? None of that's happening. It's going to happen at the ballot box, or it's going to happen by inertia, one or the other, or neglect. And we're staring at a sovereign debt crisis, which is going to make everybody really decide what it is that they actually want and what it is they actually believe. Because so many people think they believe in socialism, or they believe in capitalism, or they believe in all these isms, and they really don't. Not until all the fake money's gone and everything really truly starts to deflate, or they hyperinflate, which is effectively the same thing. And the social upheaval from that and the political upheaval from that will then truly define what people believe in. Because so now we've just been living with all this monetary opium.
And you're right. As soon as that goes away, then things will look a lot different.
Those of us who are early adopters and who can see clearly through the miasma of this, right? We're the ones laying the intellectual groundwork and the emotional groundwork for when that day comes. That's the way I see my role in all of this. That's the best I can do.
Well, and that's a good way of seeing it. And I'm just trying to report on the crimes and to let people know this Absolutely. Is what's happening to you right now. When are you going to wake up? When are you going to pay attention?
What can you or should you do about it?
Exactly.
What can you do?
What is your solution?
And your solution should always be personal. This is the hardcore libertarian in me comes out and says, what can you do? Save someone's life. Save your own first, then save the person next to you.
Exactly.
Don't worry about saving the country. Save the person next to you. You save that person regardless of their political affiliation. I got news for you. Now you have a friend for life.
There you go. I like it.
And now community can reassert itself, and now culture can reassert itself.
And that's where it comes. That's where it always comes back to, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Always, Absolutely. Always. It's me and you, arm in arm, trying to make something happen, trying to build a foundation that we can both stand on, that
Mm-hmm.
benefits both of us, that we can say, that's what we believe in. That's where we're at. That's what we're going to hold on to.
And we have to resist the temptation to lash out at those that we think are our enemies or have been told are our enemies. That's the hard part. That's when we get into the stuff about China. I know we want to wrap this up real quick here, but that's where we have to really resist the easy siren's call of the politician blaming the other guy for our own sins. Our politicians gave our country away, and we let them do it.
They sold it.
And we let them do it.
Yes, we did. We stood idly by and did nothing.
And so complaining about China stealing our patents or this or that or anything else, when I got news for you, Intel didn't have to build their plants in China. They didn't have to do business over there if they didn't want to. David Stockman and I talked about this 2 weeks ago, and he said, it's not Donald Trump's job to safeguard our companies who want to do dumb things. It is not our job. It is not the government's job to do that. It shouldn't be the government's job to do that. It's no one's job. It's the board of directors of Intel or Facebook or whomever. That's their job.
Right.
And the rest of it is all just classic blame shifting. And, and I don't mean to blame the victims here. We are the victims, but we have to take a certain amount of responsibility for ourselves and what we didn't do to stop this, of where it is. And, we are a victim of this, but we also are part of the problem. And we have to be willing to accept that before we can really make it some changes. So I wholeheartedly believe in draining the swamp. I don't believe in a trade war with China, because all it'll hurt are the very people that you're trying to help in the end, because anybody with, passing understanding of economics and the passing of costs and secondary effects understands these things.
Yeah, somebody's got to pay for it.
Somebody's going to pay for it. I got news for you. It's going to be you and me.
Yep.
And we can't afford it. So the government will print. So look, and at the end of the day, we run a $1.2 trillion deficit. Where do you think those dollars go? Right?
They're not coming to me.
They go out through the capital account and they come back through the trade account. It's all just an accounting nightmare. The trade deficit is a mirage. Martin Armstrong makes this point all the time. I'll leave you with this point just to ensure everybody gets the point. The trade deficit is an accounting problem. It's an accounting problem. Okay? It's not a real problem. The problem comes from the Federal Reserve. The problem comes from the government spending $1.2 trillion more than it takes in. Those dollars go into our economy. We then spend them on stuff from China. That goes on the trade, and then that comes back in as an import. But the dollars don't go out as an export because the dollars go out through the capital account. Okay?
Yeah.
So we export debt and we get goods in return.
Right.
Who's got a better deal than that? Makes me crazy. But it's very divisive, by the way. And I never get more people unsubbing from me than when I go on a trade rant. Well, but I refuse to compromise 1 inch on this.
Well, it's not because of what you're saying. It's because there's a couple of other reasons, and I think that it's probably because they don't understand and it scares them. Because all of a sudden I have to take responsibility. You just told me that I have to take responsibility. Well, I'm not doing that.
And these are the same people that say, that then preach that in their own lives. And it's very frustrating to see conservatives do this because generally speaking, they're on the right side of the personal responsibility argument. But when it comes to they stole our jobs, it's like it's religion at this point, and you can't stop it.
Yes.
And and that's the other reason why I think that we're over and done with is that's just not going to end. And you don't conflate the terrible policies of people of odious people of the bicoastal liberals and the swamp dwellers in Washington and the $1 trillion a year we spend on bombs and national offense. Okay, don't conflate that with the dirty Chinese stealing our jobs. That's not the situation. Okay. Those two things they're both problems. The Chinese, I'm not saying the Chinese are our friends or this or anything else. No, they're our rivals, yada, yada, yada. There's all of that. But you can't have a zero-sum understanding of trade either. You can't, Trump has this idea in his head that anybody who runs a trade surplus with us is stealing from us. Like, I'm like, how do you graduate from Wharton with that worldview? Because it's not true. Whatever. He's president now.
He is president. He is in charge, and we are not.
And in some ways, it's very unfortunate. I love what he's going to do to the Democrats in the next 6 months. That's where he's going to have value. But this whole thing with China, trade war, and everything else, I'm hoping that he just finally backs off on it and comes with senses that he can't treat this like a real estate deal, and that he finally realizes that you can't conduct international relations like it's a real estate deal. He can do that with the Democrats, but he can't do it. He can't do it with international relations. He's either got to learn or he's got to step aside. One or the other. So
hopefully he'll learn. Well,
me too. I'm willing to give him a second chance, but as of right now, he's definitely not. He's definitely not on my Christmas card list.
Well, I'm sure he's heartbroken over that.
Oh, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is.
Oh, well, we've been speaking with Tom Luongo, and you can find all of Tom's great work over at Gold, Goats, and Guns. And you can find him also fairly regularly over at strategicculture.org. And what's the other Money Watch?
And Money and Markets, moneyandmarkets.com is moneyandmarkets.com, as well as you can also, please, if you like listening to me rant into a microphone, I also have a YouTube channel that's I do live streams every Monday night at 8 and Friday night at 8:30, along with ad hoc shorter ones during the week whenever it strikes my fancy. So about 4 to 5 times a week, I hit the YouTube channel for that as well. And we do all of this: geopolitics, economics, culture, philosophy, you name it, we do it. We talk about it.
And you do a great job, and I republish quite a bit, not 100%, but pretty close to the work that you do. I publish that over at the Coin.org. And I would just want to thank everybody for tuning in, all the Gadfly subscribers. If you're not a Gadfly subscriber, please take advantage of the 1 week free trial. I can assure you, you will not want to leave. Tom, I certainly appreciate everything, and I look forward to speaking with you in the not too distant future.
I appreciate it, Rory, and had a great time as always. Take care and be well.